spend a lot of time focusing on how to get that next client. We spend a lot of time focusing on one lead, one client, one prospect at a time. However, in some instances, you could invest the same amount of time and attention forging a relationship with a potential partner. Because when you are able to forge a relationship with a potential partner, that one partnership might be able to bring in 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, 100 new opportunities into your business. Partnerships, they're a very powerful growth tool because they harness the power of leverage. Now, to help us out today, I'm very happy and thrilled to have with me right now Katrina Mccarter. And the reason why is we have known each other for a very long time. Indeed, Katrina is a serial entrepreneur. She's the founder of a business called Bubbler, which she built and sold. And I'm sure she'll tell you about that in just a moment. She is an internationally acclaimed speaker and best-selling author on the topic of marketing to mums. But Katrina is also a master in the art of partnerships. Indeed, her business, I believe one of her businesses is now called Partnerships Mastery. Katrina, how are you? Welcome.
I'm great, James. Can I say thank you so much? You really pumped up my ego with that lovely introduction.
Oh, it's awesome. And all of it is 100% true, honest stuff. Now, partnerships. This is something that I feel really passionate about. It's something that you've been doing for a long time. How did you end up moving into this particular space? How did this become one of your key areas of focus?
I so love that question. For me, it all started in 2011. I was 39, had 3 small kids, and I launched my first ever business. And I kind of had always wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like that had been my key kind of aspiration. But I think I'd been held back a little bit by fear. And also that thought of, am I actually going to match my corporate, my nice cushy corporate wage? And I just felt like I had a mortgage, 3 small kids, things weren't getting any easier. My financial obligations were increasing. It was now or never. So I jumped in and I launched Australia's first group buying site for families called Bubbler. And I capital raised a small amount of money for this, which is a whole other story. But it was a really, really kind of exciting time for me. But I was really cautious about spending any money on paid advertising because, you know, I just secured this small amount of capital to get going. But I did do a bit. And I was really disappointed with the results. And I remember one night I reached out to another woman on the other side of the country who also had an online parenting site. And we got talking and kind of exchanged startup stories. And on a whim, I asked her, I said, would you be interested in running a joint competition with me? And the mode of entry would be that they'd have to sign up to both of our newsletters. And she went, absolutely. And she said, but how about we ask another player as well? And I was feeling fairly bold and confident at the time. And I remember I reached out to the largest community, online parenting community in Australia at that time. And I said to them, look, if I could secure a really, really good prize, would you be willing to join the 2 of us in this joint competition? And to my surprise, she said, I am in. And I spent the next couple of weeks negotiating a terrific prize sponsor. And that prize, that actual prize that I secured was called a Thermomix. And James, I'm not sure if you know what a Thermomix is.
I know what a Thermomix is, and I know the cult status that these ridiculously expensive tools have and how they're able, you can use them to make mushy rice and all sorts of other
You can. So they cost over $2,000 here in Australia. They cook, they're like a food processor and cooker in one. They were highly desired back in 2012 when we were running this. And over 10 days, we ran this joint competition and everyone had to sign up to our newsletter in order to be part of the competition. In that 10 days, I added 7,000 new members to my website, and all it cost me was $50 for the graphics that you can see here and my time to negotiate each of those partners. So this for me was a serious revelation, because at the time, if I had done this through paid advertising means, it would have cost me over $10,000.
Yeah.
So $10,000 or $50 and a bit of my time, there was absolutely, this for me was like, this is fantastic. And over the next 5 years, I repeated this format again and again and again. I would team up with another online business that had the same ideal client as mine, that wasn't in direct competition, and we would run a joint competition. And I never in any month spent more than $300 a month on my marketing.
And I'm just going to get you to pause there. I mean, like, this is obviously the B2B Summit, B2B sales and marketing. And there's always this part of the brain that says, oh, that's not going to work for me because I'm not marketing to mums, or, you know, I'm marketing a complicated, sophisticated, high-level synergistic solutions, something rather, whatever. But I'm going to point to the one in the middle where it says win a cleaner for 4 months.
Yep.
Right? Whatever your target audience and whoever it is that you're working with, they have headaches, obstacles, aspirations, and desires, and there are going to be complementary, non-competitive partners that can help them do that thing that they hate, that scrubbing, that cleaning, that whatever it is in the context of the business. You know, it could be accounting, it could be lawyering, it could be intellectual propertying. I don't know what it could be, but there's always going to be something that could be the equivalent of, I hate cleaning. Here's someone who can partner with you to get that prize. Is that a good example?
Yeah, look, what I would say is, for me, the value of my business was in the size of my community. The bigger the community, the better the quality of advertisers that I could attract to my business, and the more I could charge for it. And also the more that I could charge when I sold my business. So for me, I use this partnership method to grow my business to a community of 150,000 mums. And as I said, I never spent more than $300 a month on advertising. And in my final 18 months of owning this business, I didn't spend anything because I doubled down on partnerships. So there is an opportunity, I believe, very much in the B2B space, as you're saying, to use some kind of format like this to achieve your business objectives, only faster and at lower cost. And that's really the beauty that I find in partnerships. And that's my thing. I really believe that everyone here listening is one partnership away from the business success that they desire. And that's really what I see partnerships all about. So, James, you gave a little bit of an intro as to who am I. I'll do a quick little wrap so everyone listening understands who I am. I run Marketing to Mums. That's probably how I am best known. It's a marketing and research consultancy that helps businesses basically attract more mothers to their business. And I work with startups right through to corporates across pretty diverse industries. I'm also an author, so I wrote a book about it in 2016, and that's really a how-to book for businesses that spend less than $10,000 a year on advertising. And in 2019, I launched a book in the space as well, my second book, which was all around finding the opportunities over the next 10 years. So that's looking at it overseas as well as here in Australia. And I get to speak quite a lot. I love research. I'm a real data nerd. And so I undertake a lot of research and I get to share that across the world, which is a lot of fun, and missing it with not being able to get in a plane at the moment. I also have a podcast, and back in 2018, I launched Marketing to Mums, and that's really allowed me to develop some great relationships overseas with some pretty significant brand leaders that I learn from as well. But more recently, as you alluded to, I've become well known for my other kind of superpower, which is around collaborations and partnerships. And that's become a brand in itself called Partnership Mastery. In terms of what I'm really keen to see if we can cover off today, James, is that I first want to get everyone on the same page. I want everyone to understand, what does a successful marketing partnership look like? And I'll share with you kind of how I would see that working out. Then what I really want to do is I want to give you some ideas. I want you to think about 7 different ways that you might be able to use a partnership to grow your B2B business. And then lastly, I want to set you a bit of a challenge. I love a challenge at the end. just to see what you've learned and how you can put that into place. Does that sound okay, James?
Yeah. And I particularly like the second point here. We've got to cover part one, and part three is very important too, because we want people to take action. But one of the things about partnerships is that a lot of people limit it to a small number of things. They think, oh, I'm going to do a competition because that's the one that Katrina provided us with, or I'm going to do a reciprocal send via email. There are so many other opportunities and broader opportunities out there. I also want to point out, Katrina, you might not know this, but when I launched my first big training business, I kicked things off with a webinar that did quite well. Now, off the back of that webinar that did quite well, I was struggling to get more people to that webinar, and my revenues went like this. I did one day and it was $49 in one day. About a month later, I did about $1,000 in a day. About a month later, I did about $4,000 in a day. A month later, I did $43,000 in one day, which was a game changer for me. How did that happen? Partnerships.
Yeah.
Partnerships. It was partnering. So I can also, add that level of support for this particular way of running a business or growing a business. Very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm going to encourage you to get out your pen and paper, because I'm hoping to give you a fair few ideas. I'm glad to see you've got yours there, James. I'm going to share a heap of stories with you, and it's not designed for me to, blow my own trumpet. It's really about, I'm hoping that it's going to spark some ideas for you in your business about how you might be able to leverage that opportunity and put that into your business. So I'd really, really love you to capture it. But before we do that, I just want to talk about, make sure we're all on the same page and talk about what is a marketing partnership. To me, it's quite simply, really, really simple. It's when two or more businesses come together for mutual benefit. Some people, you'll hear them use all sorts of different lingo around it. They'll call them collabs, JVs, contras, sponsorship. I put them all under the same umbrella of marketing partnerships. And sometimes they'll involve an exchange of money. Other times they won't. And I find them just as successful in a B2B environment as in a B2C. And I think a lot of B2B businesses are perhaps yet to discover the power of partnerships. And I'm hoping that this presentation might convince you otherwise to really start looking at this opportunity. For me, what I see is that a successful marketing partnership has kind of got three elements to it. First up, same audience that's not in competition with each other is key. The next thing is I'm looking for an equal exchange of value to take place. Any partnership that doesn't have that, if that's unequal, it's just going to breed some really ill feeling, and you're never going to work with them long term. And the third area that I really love to cover off, which I think a lot of people miss, is make sure that you have got that there's the same business ethics or shared values. I've done one partnership where I really mucked that up, and it cost me dearly. I did one of these joint competitions with a business that I really hadn't pre-validated with very well. And at the end of our marketing partnership, they went out and spammed the new audience with a stack of emails that just day after day, they were relentless. And boy, did my audience let me know. So this is a really big one, to make sure that you pre-validate any kind of prospective partner before you to just make sure you're on the same page. James, you ever had an experience like that?
I'll tell you what, it was the second one that it was the difference in exchange of value. And it doesn't mean that somebody's getting ripped off, or even and most of the time there's no ill feelings at all. What just happens is that one person's enthusiastic and the other one's enthusiasm just tapers away. And it just, all the effort that you put in at the front end kind of evaporates. What do they call it? Like, that book or that movie, She's Just Not Into You, or He's Just Not That Into You?
He's just not into you.
Yeah, you end up with that scenario and you're like, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do there? And they're like,
what I find is that,
or you're that person.
Is that a lot of small business owners, if they're partnering with a big business, will want to offer up a stack of value because they want to feel worthy of being able to partner with a big brand. And what happens is that they just do too much work for for what the brand really needs, what that big brand needs. And that is that unequal exchange of value. So it's really important that anyone who's a small business owner here, it really owns their value when they go into a partnership negotiation.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah. In terms of, I just want to say, never been a better time to be looking at partnerships than now. We have got a lot of brands globally that have had their marketing budgets slashed, and they are looking for new ways of doing things. And previously, brands that have been quite closed off to partnerships are now willing to have a look at them. So great opportunity to partner with some pretty big brands right now, right across the world.
Yeah, I found the bigger brands are less demanding than someone that might be of a similar level.
Yeah, it
They want different things, but it's their expectations of value a little bit different because, yeah.
I would agree with you. Actually, I'm going to actually share one of my big brand experiences. So we'll talk about that as we go through. So what I really now want to talk about is give you some ideas of different ways that you might actually be able to use a partnership to grow your business. And the first one is to position your business. And I find that a lot of businesses will overlook this as a partnership opportunity. And I'm going to share with you. So when I started that first business, Bubbler, it was still fairly new in the online world in terms of people shopping online. And some of my kind of things that I was selling were, in excess of $1,000. And I needed to have some trust and credibility really quickly because no one knew who I was and who my brand was. And so what I did was I looked to leverage off someone else's reputation within the marketplace. And I thought, in terms of my ideal target market, playgroup associations represented a great opportunity. They had been supporting my ideal client market for decades. They were seen as incredibly credible and supportive and trustworthy. So I formed a partnership with them where a percentage of sales could go towards a playgroup of their choice. So effectively, I became a fundraising vehicle for the playgroups as well. And for me, what I got out of it was I positioned my business as being very credible and trustworthy, and that worked particularly well. Another way that I used it was actually in positioning myself as not just the Australian expert, but now really positioning myself as a global expert on that in that marketing to mom space. And I had been secured as the opening keynote speaker for the US conference, which is the M2 Moms conference. It's the leading conference for people in my space. And so I pitched an idea to actually launch my second book there, where everyone in the audience would actually be gifted a copy of this book. And that was, in the hands of Google and Facebook and YouTube, all the big people. So that really assists position myself on the global stage. So I would ask everyone listening, is there a business or a brand whose reputation would really reflect favorably for your business that you could look to partner with to position your business? That would be my key take out of that. Is this is a really big opportunity that people miss. The next idea that I wanted to talk to you about is using a partnership to fund a project. I know heaps of businesses have got some ideas about particular assets that they want to create or a project that they want to run that they just, for one reason or another, either don't have the cash or are not wanting to invest the money. And I want to suggest to you, consider how you might use a partnership to get that project off the ground. For me, when I launched my first business, I was still in startup phase. When I launched Marketing to Mums, I was still in startup phase. And I wrote my first book, and I wanted to secure a really fantastic editor. And I've got one. Someone had just left the major publishing house here in Australia. and she was interested in finding out more about the self-publishing world and agreed to do it. But she came at a big cost, and I needed to get creative about how I could fund her. So I thought about who was going to read this book, and the reader of this book was likely to be a mum in business that was also wanting to attract more mums to their business. And I thought, who else is wanting to speak to that kind of customer? And I knew that women were entering business at 3 times the rate of men in Australia and had been for a decade. And they were typically going into small business. So I thought they had to be on the radar of Xero, the accounting software providers. So not knowing anyone there, I put together my pitch and I sent it off. And over the next 3 weeks, we negotiated an agreement which paid for my fantastic editor and allowed Xero to really develop their relationships with some women in business too, in terms of my obligations. So don't think that because you're a startup or you're new in your field that you can't partner with a big scale brand as well, is certainly what I would say.
I remember there was a bank, biggest bank in Australia, right? Which means it's top 10 bank in the world. And they reached out to me and they said, could I contribute some blogs for their website, right? So I was like, blog posts for their email newsletter, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, sure. You know, I'm like thinking profile. And we're having the discussion. And then there's this awkward moment. And then they said,
how much?
So how much money will we need to pay you? Until that point, I was about to do it. I was totally about to do it for free.
Yeah.
And I pitched a rate, and I later discovered that I charged 3 times more than the highest paid business journalist in Australia by the word.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well done, James. That's awesome. Well, listen, after I got my great editor, I then went up, I got my books printed and I went up to the post office and found that it was actually pretty expensive to go and post them. And I thought, who else? Is there a delivery service that is wanting to talk to small business owners? Because that was my reader. And I found a really innovative courier company that I had been watching online for a while. Again, not knowing anyone, I just put together my pitch and I sent it off to their CEO. And lo and behold, I got a response within 24 hours. Admittedly, they bumped me off to their CMO. And when I contacted them, they said, look, we haven't done anything like this. And I said, well, what an opportunity. And over the next couple of meetings, we negotiated that they would cover off the delivery costs of my book for the first 12 months. And what I did in response was we had a really great co-branded bookmark that went out with each book. And also they provided me with some discount codes for my clients as well. So not only was this benefiting me, it was benefiting them, but it was also had an added benefit for my client base as well. So, are there ways that you could do that where there is that triple win? I love it when there's that triple win. Then it came time to launch the book, and it was like I'd seen a lot of people investing $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, putting on some fancy drinks and saying a few words. I wanted to find where was going to be an event which had all my ideal readers at, and I offered to speak for free in exchange for launching my book at that event, and that was really, really successful. And again, a win for them. Similarly, it came time when I looked at my podcast. James, running a podcast and producing a podcast takes up a huge amount of time. It also is pretty expensive, not just producing it, researching your guests, recording it, and then amplifying each of the episodes. So I worked out it's probably about 10 grand over the course of a year in terms of putting together the production costs. And I thought, who else is wanting to speak to my listeners? And I found a really great marketing technology platform that was talking to my listeners that had just gone through a rebrand. And I thought, well, they need to communicate that out to the marketplace, and they could do that with me over a consistent basis. So they actually funded my podcast for the first year of production as well. So there's a lot of ways. What I want to say, my message is here. If you've got a project that you want to get off the ground, have a look at how you could use partnerships to make that happen. Definitely. The third area, which I know will arouse some interest, is you could use a partnership to gain new leads. And this is where, like, a lot of people listening and watching will have a deep expertise in a particular area. James, would that be right?
Yeah. So for me, this is one of the main reasons and ways that I use to partnerships. And that's to get leads.
Yeah.
What I would say is that one of the big advantages of people in the B2B space is that you might not be selling widgets or software or hardware. You usually do what you do because you come from a background of experience. People are paying for you for your experience, your know-how, your knowledge, and your expertise, which is a huge advantage.
Yeah, can I tell you, that is a massive asset. So I call that a partnership asset, your expertise. What you want to find, though, is a distribution partner. And what I mean by that is who has a large audience of your ideal clients. And if you can bring the expertise, they bring the audience, that can be a really, really powerful way to gain new leads. And I'll give you just a really simple example. I teamed up with someone that had a large community of really loyal small business owners, and I came in and we did a joint masterclass where I spoke about partnerships and they brought the audience, and that generated a complete intake for me for my partnership mastery program, straight up. So generated significant leads because the distribution partner has a lot of authority and can endorse you as well to facilitate the creation of those leads. So a really, really strong way to gain new leads for a B2B business.
So I'm just going to say you have assets. Sometimes the challenge is realizing what assets that you have or just acknowledging your assets. The first time I went through this process and I was writing assets, someone leaned over my shoulder and said, "You're really good on webinars, James." Now, I ended up being a paid webinar host for GoToWebinar.
Yeah, so I love that.
Paid to speak as the host for GoToWebinar, promote GoToWebinar, and I would also get the leads. You have assets. Sometimes you just don't know what they are.
I normally do an asset audit with my clients. So we actually run through because you want to work out what are the things that are going to be of value. And one of the things I would say in the B2B space, think about your networks. Like, what introductions could you make on behalf of a partner? That they are really highly prized and valued in a partnership negotiation. I can tell you, and all the ones that I've done, that's what people are after. So you've got a great network, leverage it. Another way that you could use partnerships is to actually grow your profile. And to me, I believe that profile and partnerships go hand in hand. The greater your profile, the more attractive you become to prospective partners. So I think that everyone should have some partnerships in play that assist grow your profile in the marketplace. So that's super, super important. I use them in the media where I will have agreements. I'll have partnerships with particular business media where I write a certain number of articles for them every year. And that allows me to keep my profile up and demonstrate my expertise in a particular area. And it keeps me top of mind amongst my ideal clients. I've also taken that a step further and I've developed partnerships with specific journalists where I become their content source around particular areas. And I've even taken that further. And now when I undertake some research, I will go out to some key journalists and say, I'm doing some research around X. What is it that you'd like to know about? So I can include that in my research. And then that results in half or full page spreads in mainstream media. But I would ask everybody to consider, how can you use partnerships to grow your media so you can be top of mind for your ideal client? Another way that you can use them, and I really think that we've covered this one already, is to grow your email list so you can start nurturing some of those leads. And I showed you that great example with the Thermomix and all those ways that I've used it. But think about how is it that you could be using that you could be using partnerships to grow your email list. One of the things that I've done is I've partnered with other businesses so that I can develop my downloadables where people need to exchange their email. So that I often do through research reports, and then I use that as my lead magnet. So that's a great opportunity for you to be putting onto your website to generate your email list. And James, I'm watching you.
Yeah, I've got a really good example of this one.
Share it, please.
So, we talk about SMAPs, strategic marketing alliances and partnerships within the context of the B2B school. We don't go into nearly as much detail as Katrina. She is the legend. If you want to go deep, if you want someone to help you evaluate your assets and do all these different things, which usually requires a little bit of help, reach out to Katrina. But because we've been talking about this for a while in our world, there was one example that came up years ago, and it was a guy called Dylan, and he had a rock climbing adventure business.
Yeah.
And what he did is, so there's a couple elements to this. He reached out to an organization that was organizing the expo. So it was the Outdoor and Adventure Expo, something like that, big expo, also a media company attached to that. And he went and he said, hey, listen, people who are participating in the expo, would they like some data about the buying patterns of the people who are attending the expo, right? The people who have the booths, would they like to know more about the buying behaviors and patterns? And the organizers said, yeah, they'd love that. What are you thinking? And he said, after somebody registers for the expo, I will put together a little diagnostic, a quiz, a survey, and we'll call it the index. So you've got the state of motherhood in Australia here.
Yeah.
He put together a questionnaire. People completed the questionnaire. His asset that he could bring was that he knew how to pull together a questionnaire quickly and cheaply, because he's a small business owner. They're a big business owner, and it takes the majors to do anything. So he came in, he built the index. He created data. The data could be used to get media coverage. It could even be sold to the booth holders. He did the partnership with the media company. Guess how many leads he created? Just throw a number at me, coming in through the door for the Outdoor Adventure Expo, putting in their data to register for the event, and then it redirected to his little index.
3,000.
17,000.
I love it. Yeah. And that is smart. So that's a really great strategic, smart approach to partnerships. I love that example.
And it doesn't have to be that big. People doing little meetups and all sorts of stuff around the place. I will organize the index that people would be redirected to after they register for the meetup.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. Hey, another way that you could use a partnership is to create an entirely new income stream. And the one that I want to tell you about is Partnership Mastery purely came about and became a really significant income stream in my business because a prospective partner said, I want you to teach my community how to do partnerships. And I put together a program, and that partnership has become a really big booming income stream for my business. And that came through a collaboration. So sometimes, and I'll give an example here. I know a design company, and they have this incredible expertise and skill in how to run an offshore team. And they could easily establish that as put together a framework and program and partner with someone to create an entirely new income stream for their business easily. I would say that a lot of businesses are probably sitting on some expertise that perhaps they're not utilizing.
And it's an extension of things that we've been talking about. There was positioning was the first of the 7. Profile was like 5th of the 7 or something like that.
Yep.
Whatever number we're up to, I've lost track. But if you can take care of those things, suddenly become aware of these things, we're operating in knowledge industries. It's a logical extension.
What I want to talk about is saving money. You might have picked up, I do like to save money. I run a fairly lean organization. What I love that partnerships can do is that they can save you some money and increase the profitability in your business. And that's really what I want to showcase. I've used them a couple of creative ways and probably more left field ways. And I just want to share, a couple of left field ways that I've used them that might be applicable to you or might get you thinking about some other kind of out there kind of opportunities for yourself. I do a lot of research. One of the most expensive elements of undertaking research is reaching the people, the ideal people to do them, and getting them to complete the surveys. And that can cost tens of thousands of dollars. So it's a big element of the research. What I've done is I've partnered with an online community of mums. They undertake a certain number of these surveys for me every single year to produce my research. And in response, I do some free speaking for them, for their advertising clients, for their business clients. This allows me to publish some really significant research out into the marketplace, and I use it as a downloadable PDF, which in turn grows my email list. So, and provides me with a heap of content because I've got all of this evidence that I can also share with clients and prospective clients. So that's one way that I've saved money.
And I'm butting in all the time here, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, go for it, James.
I'm passionate about. If you're also doing things like reciprocal sends, we were talking about lead generation before.
Yeah.
It's so much more helpful if you have a gift that you can give their audience. No one's going to say, hey, you can blast my audience to promote your stuff. But when you've got a download or a gift, you can say, hey, I've got this awesome thing. Would you like to give it to your audience? And you give me an awesome thing and I'll give it to my audience. That's a different arrangement rather than like just these tacky referral networks that seem to happen. Yeah.
And can I say, James, that's a really great starting point for someone who is new to partnerships. Just doing that simple exchange is a really nice, just put my toe in the water and see what these partnerships are like. So I think of it as a muscle. I talk to my clients about exercising your partnership muscle, and that's a really, really great exercise for someone to do who's been inactive with their partnership muscle. Look, another way that I've used it, one thing you need to know about me, I hate ironing. I hate ironing so much. And prior to COVID, I used to be in and out of a plane doing a lot of speaking at events. And so I always wanted outfits that I could roll up in a ball, throw in a bag, get on a plane, get out and not have to iron on the other side. That was always my objective. So I finally found a designer who did just that. Great wrap dress, could wrap it up, throw it in a bag. And I thought, you know what? If I'm wearing her gear all the time in front of audiences, surely we could find a partnership together. And so I put together my pitch, I sent it off to her, and I heard crickets. And not deterred by hearing the crickets, I thought there must be another way in. And I went through their customer service team. And lo and behold, struck a partnership with them. And they dressed me for a lot of my speaking engagements, probably for about 9 months, saved me a lot of money and allowed me to achieve my objective of not ironing. So, you know, that's just another way that you might be able to use partnerships to save money. I've got a client who's currently pitching to a designer to dress him for a lot of his engagements as well. So
if I can get like some blue denim shirt manufacturer, because I kid you not, I hate ironing too. I hate actually choosing what to wear in the morning. So I wear the same stuff every day. I've got like 10 blue denim shirts. Uniqlo. All right, Uniqlo. I've got to go.
So can I say, James, I'm sending you the challenge. Your challenge is to find someone that is going to dress you. And will you come back to us all and tell us once you've secured it? I've got another client who is looking for an earring person. She's always wearing earrings when she's on camera. So yours is to find someone who's got a great shirt. Okay, James?
Shirts.
Great shirts. So look, just to do a recap, what I've hoped to share, what I've done here is given you some ideas. So you can use partnerships to position your business, to get a project off the ground, to gain those new leads, to position yourself as the expert and really keep your profile up, to grow your email list, open up new income streams for your business and to save money and grow your profitability. So they're kind of 7 ways. Let me tell you, this is not an exhaustive list either. Partnerships can be used to achieve your business objectives. So you always need to start first and foremost with what is it that you want to get done, and then look at how to get the partnerships to satisfy that. So I'm keen to ask you, James, because we don't have a live audience here, which of these partnership ideas really resonated with you?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple that we're already doing. So when everyone brings something up and I go, we're already doing, I feel good, like go
yeah,
tick.
Good.
But then you also, when you're participating in something like this, other ideas emerge and you go, I could probably do that better. Thinking through it. I love the last one where you just said save money, because I'm a bit of a cheapskate. I mean, I also like things of value. I like to, it might I like things that are high quality. I didn't know if you know this, Katrina, but for quite some time, Microsoft would buy my computers for me.
Oh, I like that.
So I would have the Microsoft Surface Pro. Like the first couple that came out were very expensive, and I would get mine in the mail, and I'd always just make sure that I'd be doing a webinar, and I'd just bring out my Microsoft Surface Pro, and that's the way that I did it. But one thing that came out of that bit is that I just wrote to myself, a note to myself: what are all the services that you use? So what are all the products and services that you use in the context of your business? There's always going to be something going on in the back of your brain, which is, well, what value have I got to add to them? And that is a challenge. You've got to know, you've got to have value to add. Otherwise, you're asking someone to give you something free for nothing. But if you just sat down and wrote down a list of all the different things that you use, so this is my most valuable piece, I believe that almost every single one of them, I would be able to support them in some way for equivalent or greater value. That was my piece.
Absolutely. I love that. I would also think about the customer journey of your ideal customer. Where do they go before they come to you? And where do they go after? Because those ones that, where they go before you, they're great partners for you to do lead generation work with. And the ones where your client goes afterwards, that's a really great opportunity for you to drive referral incomes.
Referral work. Yeah. Feedback. And I love the before and after game, because if you do the before and after game, who needs before me? Who needs people after me? Then what happens is the brain goes, these are the people that need me at the exact same time. And then
perfect.
That there opens up opportunities again.
Fantastic. So I want to set you all a challenge. I want to actually say that the biggest thing that you can do is to actually get started on partnerships. So start looking at ways that you can start exercising that partnership muscle that I was talking about earlier. I see partnerships as a way of doing business. It's not something that you just do intensely for a little while and then drop. This is the winners with partnerships are those that do it as a way of business, and they're consistent in their approach. So yeah, I'm encouraging you, challenging you to really just start. And I would love you to connect. And just as James was saying earlier, I would love to share with you that I have got 7 mistakes to avoid when negotiating your partnerships. And you'll be able to get that over at the partnershipmastery.global homepage.
Yeah. So we've talked about 7 things to get right. There are definitely 7 things that you can do wrong. And there's also a piece, which is that emotional piece or the mental piece or the imposter syndrome piece, where you think, what have I got to add and what have I got to share with other organizations, until you suddenly realize that you have assets.
Yeah. And it's actually it's the second thing that we do actually in the course is getting people clear on their assets, because that's when they start to build their confidence and overcome that imposter syndrome, because it's actually, they go, you know what, I've actually got quite a bit to draw on, because initially they start thinking, oh my God, I've got to create all these assets. And it's like, no, let's hold on. Let's see what you've already got. And more than more often than not, people already have got, you know, a stack of assets that they can leverage. They just haven't started leveraging yet.
That's awesome. I want to thank Katrina. We covered a lot. There was a lot of ideas. I think that if you're like me, you've busily been scribbling notes. If you have, perhaps highlight one or two things, as Katrina suggested, the areas that you want to focus on. What is going to be your own personal challenge? What are you going to be starting next? Thank you once again so much, Katrina.
Real pleasure, and great to see you, James. And I can't wait to see who your partner is with the tops.
Maybe I'll get a beard grooming company or something like that. I don't know.
Get creative.
Getting a bit out of control. Let's see. I don't know. Wish me luck.
Yeah, be creative.